Chapter 12. Christmas morning arrived wrapped in frost and excitement. The farmhouse buzzed with the girls' laughter as they tore through stockings and chased one another around the tree. Their joy was infectious, bright, uncontainable. Rose smiled as she helped Sarah serve breakfast, the kitchen table crowded with plates of cinnamon rolls, scrambled eggs, and mugs of steaming cocoa. The warmth of the room was undeniable. Love hung in the air like garlands strung across the windows, and yet, beneath the laughter and clinking of cutlery, Rose felt a quiet ache. She missed Andy. His absence was a shadow at the edge of the celebration. She hadn't realized how much she'd come to expect his steady presence, how deeply she'd begun to rely on the way he filled a room without needing to speak. She laughed with the girls, helped Sarah with the dishes, but a restlessness tugged at her. The new year came with sleigh rides for the girls and cider by the fire for the adults. Rose watched them as they impatiently took turns on their sleigh, constructed by Tom, their cheeks flushed with joy. She smiled, but it felt distant, like watching someone else's life unfold. She moved through the days as if detached from them, functioning, but not quite present. She wondered, often, what had made Andy leave so suddenly that she didn't ask. If Sarah had wanted to tell her, she would have. Rose respected that silence, even as it gnawed at her. Sarah and Tom exchanged quiet glances when they thought she wasn't looking. Concern flickered in their eyes, but Rose kept herself busy. She took long walks through the snow-covered fields, the cold air clearing her thoughts. She helped with the girls' schooling, reading aloud and correcting their letters with gentle patience. She took to knitting under Sarah's guidance, her fingers slowly learning the rhythm of the needles. One snow-hardened afternoon, Rose sat at the kitchen table, winding yarn into a ball, her fingers moving slowly, thoughtfully. Sarah poured tea into two mismatched mugs and slid one across the table. She sat down opposite Rose, her shawl draped loosely over her shoulders. "Tom's been out later than usual," Rose said. "Not quite a question." Sarah nodded, her eyes on the steam rising from her cup. "Preparation for spring starts early. He's checking fences, clearing the barn. There's always something." Rose hesitated. "It feels different. The house, I mean, quieter." Sarah looked at her gently. "You've gotten used to us." Rose smiled faintly. "I suppose I have." They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that felt companionable. Outside, the girls' voices drifted in from the yard, muffled by the half-open window. Sarah reached for her own knitting. "You've taken to needles well," she said. "Better than I did at first." Rose shrugged. "It helps. Keeps my hands busy." Sarah glanced at her, then back at her yarn. "And your heart?" Rose didn't answer right away. She looked out the window, watching Lily chase a chicken across the yard. "It's quieter too," she said finally, "but not still." Sarah nodded, understanding more than she said. Then she set her knitting down, her fingers resting lightly on the wall. She looked at Rose for a long moment, then said softly, "Tom's been carrying more than just getting ready for spring." Rose tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Sarah hesitated, choosing her words. "He's worried about Andy. We both are." Rose's breath caught, but she stayed quiet. "He left in a hurry," Sarah continued. "Didn't say much, even to Tom, just that he needed to go, that something back there needed settling." Rose looked down at the yarn in her lap. "Helen." Sarah nodded. "Her family, her memory. I think he needed to face it properly before he could move forward." Rose's fingers tightened around the yarn. "He didn't say." Sarah reached across the table and touched her hand. "That doesn't mean he didn't want to. Sometimes people need to walk through the storm before they can speak about it." Rose swallowed. "He said he'd come back." Sarah smiled gently. "And I believe he will." Rose listened to the joyful sounds of the girls outside, and she knew that Andy would return, if for nothing other, but for them, his girls. She wondered, though, if he would be coming back for her. Chapter 13. January settled in, with its quiet routines. Then, one morning, 2 letters arrived. One was addressed to Sarah and Tom. The other bore Rose's name. Rose took it to her room, her fingers trembling as she broke the seal. Andy's handwriting filled the page. Steady, familiar. Dear Rose, I arrived safely. The train was long, the city louder than I remembered, and everything moves faster here. I've forgotten how much, but I'm managing. I miss the quiet of the farm. I miss the girls' laughter. I miss Sarah's apple pie. And I miss you. There's so much I didn't say before I left. Things I've kept bottled up for longer than I should have. I didn't know how to say it then. I still don't. Not fully. But I will. When I return. I meant what I said. I'll be back. That's a promise. I hope you're keeping warm. I hope you're still walking the fields. Still tying ribbons around jars. Still blushing when the girls speculate about us. I hope you're well. For now, I don't have an address for you to write me back. But I'll write again soon. And when I return, I'll tell you everything. Yours, Andy. He promised to come back to her. And signed, yours, Andy. Rose's heart skipped. She read the letter again, slower this time, letting each word settle. The ache in her chest softened, replaced by something warmer. Not certainty, not yet, but hope. She folded the letter carefully, pressed it to her lips, and tucked it into the drawer beside her bed. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside, something had begun to thaw. Rose's second letter arrived late in February, thick and carefully sealed. It was noticeably heavier than the one addressed to Sarah and Tom. Sarah handed it to Rose with widened eyes and a teasing smile, her warmth unmistakable. "Looks like somebody had a lot to say," she murmured. Rose's breath caught. She clutched the envelope tightly and rushed to the stairs, skipping steps, her heart thudding in her throat. In her room, she closed the door gently behind her, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The letter began, "My dearest Rose." Rose whispered the words aloud, her voice barely audible. "My dearest Rose." She pressed the page to her chest for a moment, before continuing to read. "My dearest Rose, I hope this letter finds you warm and well. The days here are damp and grey, but I imagine the snow still clings to the fields back home, and the girls are likely begging for one more snowman before spring steals it all away. San Francisco is the same, but also different. It's hard to imagine. I once thought this was what I wanted. I've been staying at a small hotel near the harbor these last few days. It's quiet enough for thinking. I didn't stay with Helen's parents. I know that might surprise you. They're older now, noticeably so, and though they are kind, her presence still lingers in their house. It's heavy. I no longer want to carry that weight. I miss you more every single day. I've been thinking about buying a wide-brimmed black hat and placing it on the table in front of you at dinner, just to feel like you're here, watching me with that quiet amusement of yours. I can almost hear you teasing me about my manners. I owe you a Christmas gift. I have not forgotten. I'm still hunting for something that captures the woman you are, mysterious, resilient, and warm. Might have to invent it myself. There's so much I want to say, and I will. I'm not ready to write it all yet, but I will when I return. That promise still stands. Until then, know this. You are in my thoughts, every morning and every night, and in the quiet moments in between, yours, Andy. Rose read the final lines slowly, letting each word settle like snow on her skin. Her fingers lingered on the page, tracing the curve of his handwriting, as if it might reveal something more. She folded the letter carefully, pressed it once to her lips, and tucked it into the drawer beside her bed, next to the first. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, but inside, something had shifted. The ache hadn't vanished, but it had softened. Andy's words wrapped around her like a thread, connecting her to something just beyond reach, but real. Downstairs, she could hear the girls laughing, Sarah humming as she stirred something on the stove. Life moved on, steady and warm. But Rose sat still for a moment longer, her heart full and fluttering. She whispered again, this time with a smile. "My dearest Rose." Chapter 14. It had been weeks since Andy's last letter. March had passed in silence. Rose told herself to trust him, to believe in his promise, but in the quiet, her doubts returned. What if he'd met someone else? Someone who made him laugh again. Someone who didn't carry the weight of shame. Someone whole. Someone who dresses in elegant frocks and who knows how to act flirtatiously with her gloves or a fan. Someone who isn't tainted by the scandal of divorce. Someone who could have a baby. What if he saw her differently now that he was surrounded by lots of women who were eligible? What if he'd changed his mind? One late afternoon, with the sun finally warm enough to coax buds from the trees, Rose decided to take a walk with the girls. Nora and Maddie ran ahead, their boots kicking up damp soil as they scrambled over the hilly ground. They shrieked with delight at every patch of wildflowers pushing through the thaw, violets, snowdrops, and the first hints of daffodils. Rose followed at a gentler pace, Lily's small hand tucked into hers. The child chatted happily about the flowers, their colors, their names, their imagined personalities. Rose nodded, smiled, and listened, grateful for the distraction. The sky was a soft blue, streaked with wisps of cloud. Birds called from the trees, and the wind carried the scent of wet earth and new beginnings. It should have felt like hope. It almost did. Rose was forcing herself to stay in the moment, willing her mind into stillness. But beneath the surface, worry and uncertainty tugged at her. She squeezed Lily's hand a little tighter, grounding herself in the child's warmth. Lily looked up at her with open, trusting eyes, and a smile that held no doubt, no fear, just joy. Rose envied that. They reached a small clearing where the girls began gathering flowers into messy bouquets. Rose sat on a fallen log, watching them, letting the sun touch her face. She didn't know what the next letter would say, if it would come at all, but for now, she was here, with the girls, with spring, and that, she reminded herself, was something. Suddenly, Nora shrieked, her voice slicing through the quiet afternoon. "Look!" she cried, pointing toward the ridge. Rose stood quickly, shading her eyes with her hand. A rider was approaching, silhouetted against the soft spring light. The saddlebags were bulky, the horse moving slow, with purpose. The shape tugged at her memory, but it was Maggie who gasped first. "It's Uncle Andy!" she shouted, her voice bursting with joy. Before Rose could speak, the girls took off, their boots thudding against the soft ground, laughter trailing behind them like ribbons in the wind. Andy dismounted as he reached them, his movements swift and sure. He scooped the girls into his arms, one after the other, their small bodies clinging to him with delight. Their chatter was a blur of excitement and questions, but Andy's eyes lifted over their heads and met Rose's. He stared at her without a word, but his eyes said everything. Rose felt her cheeks flush under the weight of his gaze. There was something in it, something quiet and steady and full of promise. She looked away, but the warmth lingered. Eventually, the girls calmed enough for Andy to greet her properly. He stepped forward, his voice softer now. "Hello, Rose." She grinned, suddenly feeling bold and carefree. "Hello, Uncle Andy." He snorted, the sound warm and amused. The girls glanced between the two adults, sensing something unspoken, something they were still too young to understand. Andy lifted Maggie and Nora onto the horse's back, their giggles rising again. Then he bent and hoisted Lily onto his shoulders, her arms wrapping around his head like a garland of daffodils. Rose walked beside him as they made their way slowly back to the homestead. The sun was dipping low, casting golden light across the fields. The air smelled of damp earth and wildflowers. Rose didn't ask why he'd come back. Not yet. She didn't need to. For now, it was enough to walk beside him. Sarah saw them even before the joyful chatter of the girls was audible. She must have watched the party approaching long before they reached the porch. She simply stood cradling Emily, now chubby and bright-eyed, her curls bouncing as she squirmed. Andy engulfed both Sarah and Emily in a hug, but Emily turned away, burying her face in Sarah's shoulder. Andy didn't flinch. He smiled reassuring. "No matter. We'll get reacquainted soon enough," he whispered to the squirming infant. Tom arrived from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. He and Andy shook hands firmly, the kind of handshake that spoke of affection and trust. "Good to have you back," Tom said, his voice thick. The entire family moved back toward the house, the air buzzing with warmth and noise. Inside the kitchen, Andy turned his attention back to the girls, crouching in front of them with a grin. "Well now," he said, pulling a bulky satchel from the saddlebags, brought inside by Tong. "I believe I promised something shiny." The girls squealed as he slowly, deliberately, pulled out treasures. A gold-embossed illustrated storybook about fairies and treasures for Maggie, a gold-plated mini tea set for Nora, a new cloth doll stitched with golden thread for Lily, the long strands of hair from the same golden thread. Each gift was met with gasps and giggles, and Andy took his time, letting the joy unfold. When the girls were settled on a rug, admiring each other's shiny new treasury, he unpacked more gifts, a new pipe and a book on modern farming methods for Tom, a soft woolen coat, scarf, and matching gloves for Sarah, a bright red rattle for Emily. And there was more. School supplies for the girls, slates, chalk, an abacus, colored ribbons, fabric in beautiful colors for summer dresses. Then he turned to Rose. But instead of speaking to her, he looked over to the girls with a mischievous glint. "Now," he said, "I need to know something very important. Was Aunt Rose naughty or nice while I was away?" The girls erupted in laughter, shouting over one another. "She was good. She made pancakes. She didn't even yell when we spilled the flour." Andy raised an eyebrow. Sounds like she might deserve a gift after all." Rose blushed, caught between amusement and anticipation. Andy smiled into her eyes. "Then Aunt Rose will get her gift after dinner."